Okay, welcome back year 10 to the next lesson, the lesson for this week. As you'll see from the title, same title as ever, but this is the last lesson in the sequence for medicine in the 18th and 19th century. Last week was looking at vaccinations, this week we're looking at public health. First things first, you'll see that I've put some keywords down, and what I want you to do first and foremost is define those keywords. So public health, cholera, dehydrated, epidemic, cesspit, and laissez-faire. All of these words are going to come up at some point in the course of the lesson and the slides, so make sure you understand the meaning of those words before you continue. Get the definitions down. Some of you last week in the work that you've handed in didn't write the definitions down, and you do need to know them. So first title or subheading says, why did public health improve in the 19th century? Before you've got to this stage, obviously you should have already defined what public health is, okay? But generally speaking, if we talk about public health in the modern day context, for you to understand what I mean by that, think things like sewers, the provision of clean water supply, and things like that. Those type of things that we take for granted is what we mean by public health, and good public health is what prevents epidemic spreading. Again, quite apt given what's going on right now. So in the email that I've sent you, there'll be a series of attachments, and one of those is a PDF file about a guy called Edwin Chadwick. When we talk about public health improving in the 18th and 19th century, the first key individual you need to look at is this character, Edwin Chadwick. Read that PDF file, and then there's 3 questions I want you to answer here. So what role did Chadwick play? What was he looking at? What did he present to the British government? And what did that do for improving public health, cleaning up cities, providing clean water, etc. Second question, how and why did public health improve? So not just Chadwick now, focus on the how. So what did the government do? So how did public health improve? And in the process aid the prevention of disease in the 19th century. And look at that reminder I've put, talk about the Public Health Act, that's what PHA is, of 1848. Chadwick's work leads to the government passing the Public Health Act in 1848. It's on the sheet, read about it. What did it do? What did it change in England? Third question, what factors played a role? Remember, key factors, government, science and technology, religion, individuals, etc. Which factors play a role in this story? Then there'll be a YouTube clip. It'll be in the descriptor underneath the lesson. Always read the descriptor. Watch the YouTube clip and stop at 2 minutes and 26. Based on what you watch about Edwin Chadwick, do you have anything further to add, whether for your own notes or further to add to those answers? And that should be based off the YouTube clip. Then we move on to cholera. Now, again, one of your key words. Today we are battling the coronavirus, a pandemic that's spread around the world. Go rewind about 200 years, and there was an epidemic that spread through England called cholera, which came back in 4 different waves. So some of you watching the news about coronavirus might occasionally hear the government say, oh, we can get the numbers down for this, but a second wave will come. And in the 19th century, cholera came on 4 different occasions. Read these 2. So 1831, 1848, 1853, and 1865. Cholera came back in wave after wave after wave, and it was a killer. And one of the reasons why it killed so many people was due to the fact that public health was terrible. In the large majority of the 18th century and probably the first half of the 19th century, public health was awful. So in this picture, and then obviously in your books or on paper, depending on what you're writing on, what are the dangers you see in that picture? That picture represents what might be seen as like an impoverished town centre in the UK at the time. What type of things do you see that would lead to dangers to people's public health? And just list and note them down. And just here, I've given you some of the answers. So you might want to rewind and go back, because some of these things that I've put down here, you might be like, I didn't see that. So the poor spelling of lodging house, just talking about literacy, that's not a danger to public health, but it tells you about the people that must have been affected by poor public health. people emptying waste out of the windows, a coffin being carried in the open streets, an infant lying in filth, barefooted children running around in the same filth that's on the streets, a boy holding a rat by its tail. There's a kid doing a headstand in a dung heap. Dung heap means like can be animal or human waste. And there's props holding buildings up. So go back and look again. If you didn't see any of these things, rewind the clip and go back and look for those things again, and just look for all the things that might represent dangers to public health. Talk about cholera. I've told you it came back in 4 waves, okay, in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s of the 1800s. And then this is just a bit more information. I don't need to read it to you. In fact, I'll pause for a second so that you can just read it yourself in terms of what cholera was actually doing in Britain and what it was. So the key here, the key thing to look at when we're reading this slide is this: contaminated water. Okay, cholera in essence was a disease that was spread through contaminated water, but nobody really knew that. And if you think about how people would have got their water supply, yes, through wells, but water was being dumped into rivers and streams, etc., as well as River Thames. So people were drinking contaminated water and dying. And remember, this is in the early 1800s. So think about, what don't people know yet? Remember when we looked at Pasteur, when we looked at Koch? That's... Oh, snap. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to carry on. I'm not even going to delete that. I'm just going to carry on as if nothing happened because I don't want to edit the slide. So apologies for that. Something just fell from the wall there. But if you think about when we looked at Pasteur and you think about when we looked at Koch, obviously they discover that germs cause disease, but that's way, way, way near the end of the 19th century. So people are drinking contaminated water and not drawing the links between contaminated water and illness. So what we need to do then is we go and look at a case study of cholera. How did people eventually realize that contaminated water was making them ill? And it's all down to a gentleman called John Snow. The second PDF file that I've sent you in an email, you're now going to read that one. That's specifically on cholera. And as I said in the questions there, just read them and what's it teaching you about cholera? That's all you need to do. You don't even need to really answer the question in that first bullet point. Just what is the information telling you about cholera and its dangers? Then second bullet point, there'll be 3 questions on that second sheet that you read. Just answer those 3 questions in terms of, and that's to develop a base understanding of what cholera was all about. And then I want you to look at, we're going to look at a specific individual called John Snow. So the fight against cholera and convincing the British government that they had to improve public health in order to stop cholera coming back in wave after wave after wave was essentially down to a guy called John Snow. Okay, go back to that clip again. It'll be in the description underneath this video. Then watch from minute 226 to the end of the clip. And as I've said here, watch the clip and jot down as many details as you can about how John Snow managed to solve the cholera outbreak problem. What was it that he did? And the clue is in this map here. So when you watch it, just think about this map. And on this map, you'll see it's an area of London called Soho. Some of you have probably heard of it. And all these red dots, just now tell you, represent Snow writing down and annotating on the map where people were dying from cholera in that area. Okay, I'm not going to say too much more than that, but when you watch the clip, you should understand the relevance of the map and why I would put it on the slide. So you're just watching the clip to get an understanding of John Snow, who he was and what he did. Then the third attachment in the email I've sent you, I want you to read the Word document and then add even more information about Snow in terms of what did he do, how did he do it, how did he prove it. I'll say that again. What did he do? How did he do it? How did he prove it? Okay, so read the Word document, which, because some of you will watch the clip and not fully understand, so read the Word document as well and then just add a bit more information to your notes. How did John Snow do it? How did he prove his work? What was he doing to show the government that public health needed to improve in order to stop cholera spreading? And then also, which is part of the Word document as well, once you've read all that and you've added to your notes and you've explained how Jon Snow was able to prove all this, why did people reject his ideas? This is a common theme we keep coming back to. Think about when we did Simpson and Lister, think about Pasteur and Koch. In this period of time, great advancements are made in science. But every time you look at an individual and the advancements they make, people reject their ideas. So again, just explain to me, why was there initial rejection of Jon Snow's ideas? Even though he's able to prove that cholera is being spread through contaminated water, as usual, not everybody wants to listen to him. But why? Okay, clue, he does this in 1854. Something doesn't come about till 1861. Those of you who are at the top end of my class, you should know answers immediately. Rest of you, connect the dots, go and do the reading on my Word document. Then the extension task, again, what factors played a role in preventing cholera by 1875? Again, the factors, religion, individual, government, think about all those different factors, which ones were playing a role in helping cholera get prevented by 1875. How was each factor playing a role? Explain it fully. Again, you can use the Word document worksheet to help you answer this. Read that sheet carefully. And then lastly, to wrap it all up, so this is the end of 1700s, 1900s, so then go back over all the work we've done just before school ended and during lockdown itself, and summarize onto each of these headings. So what has changed by 1900 in terms of the understanding of the cause of disease, in terms of the treatments that people can now do, and in terms of prevention that people can now do, okay? The clue is here, or the key is here. That doesn't necessarily mean there was progress in each one of these areas. All I'm asking you to do is what progress was made, and if you don't think there was much progress, say so. So for example, just to get you started, when we think about the cause of disease, and understand the cause of disease, you should immediately say to yourself, oh, of course, in this period of time, there was a development and improvement and progress in understanding the cause of disease because Louis Pasteur was able to prove that germs cause disease. Robert Koch was able to take this further and prove which specific germs cause which specific diseases. So under each of these headings, what improvements came, if there were any, if there were improvements, what improvements came under each of those headings? So you're summarizing the whole period now, 1700 to 1900, cause, treatment, and prevention. If you don't understand that, email me and I can explain it a bit further. And lastly, just as an extension task, this is an optional one, but I say it's optional, do it. Okay, I've just set it on Seneca, so log into your Seneca Learning account and I've set you an assignment on those 4 topics. So this will check how well you've understood the last few lessons and the 18th and 19th century in general. So 3.31, 3.32, 3.33 and 3.34, go and answer all of those and try and get 100% or 100% in as many of those topics as you can. As ever, any problems, just email me and I will clarify everything for you if you have any questions. Thank you.